So here we have a poem that's all about the absolute ugliness of war, but it's written with this incredible, haunting beauty. And you know what? That contradiction is the entire point. Today, we're going to dive into Wilfred Owen's Dulce et Decorum Est, a poem straight from the trenches of World War I, to figure out how he managed to weaponize poetry itself.
So, what is it that gives this poem its staggering, lasting power? It's not just the horrific images he paints. The real secret, it's this deliberate clash that Owen built right into the poem's DNA, a fundamental conflict between what he's saying and how he's saying it.
You see, the poem's real genius is in this fundamental clash between its structure and its subject. It's basically a poem at war with itself, and that internal conflict is exactly what makes it so devastatingly effective.
Okay, so let's break down these two opposing forces, the poem's message and its form. At first glance, you'd think these two things just don't mix. But Owen, he smashes them together to create something, well, explosive. It's a tension you might even notice in our visuals today, this kind of clean, orderly style presenting these really heavy ideas. It's that same kind of jarring contrast Owen absolutely mastered. So on one hand, you've got the form. It's all about control. It has this beautiful rhythm, a really traditional structure, basically everything you'd expect from classical heroic poetry. But then you look at the message, and it is the total opposite, the brutal, ugly, chaotic reality of the trenches. Owen is using a beautiful container to serve you an absolutely horrifying truth. I mean, just look at the form. Owen's using a very traditional structure. We're talking regular stanzas, an ABAB rhyme scheme, a steady, almost marching rhythm. Now here's the kicker. This is the exact style of the patriotic, heroic war poems he was trying to tear down. He's literally weaponizing the enemy's own language against them. And the message? Well, it couldn't be clearer. Owen was writing from the trenches, right? So he wants to show the world the grim, physical truth of war. He's taking dead aim at the propaganda, at all those glorious stories being told back home, and he's determined to dismantle them with cold, hard reality. So how does this whole clash actually play out in the poem itself? Let's take a look at how Owen builds this incredible tension between his graphic images and his very precise poetic control. Okay, so this is the central technique right here. Owen takes this raw, gut-wrenching suffering and he funnels it through this beautiful aesthetic order. He's packaging the horror in a way that is just impossible to ignore. He kicks things off with this just brutal reality. He describes his soldiers not as heroes, but as these broken down, pathetic figures. Bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags. The imagery is just unflinching. It's miserable. But here's the thing. That horrifying image, it's delivered with just incredible poetic control. He uses these carefully chosen similes, like old beggars, alliteration, and a controlled, steady rhythm. The order of the language actually forces you to look at the chaos of the image. And then we get to the poem's most unforgettable moment, the gas attack. The description of a man guttering, choking, drowning is one of the most visceral and horrifying images in all of literature. It's just pure, unfiltered trauma on the page. But see, that's the trick. It's all presented inside that controlled poetic frame. And that discipline, it doesn't soften the horror. No way. It actually intensifies it. It pins you down and makes the violence totally inescapable. You can't just dismiss it as chaotic noise. Okay, so all this tension has been building and building, and it all leads to the poem's final devastating gut punch, where Owen makes this conflict between form and message completely, brutally explicit. And the way he does it is by quoting this famous Latin phrase. Now, you gotta remember, Latin is the language of tradition, of authority. Think schools, governments, the whole establishment that sent these guys off to fight. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It means it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. It's the voice of the establishment, right? So polished, so certain. And then, right after forcing us to witness a man literally drowning in his own lungs, Owen gives us his two-word verdicts on that beautiful, ancient idea, the old lie. And that's where the collision happens. On one side, you have this elegant, formal language of moral certainty, and on the other, the absolute nightmare the poem has just dragged you through. Owen is revealing that this beautiful phrase, is nothing more than a tool used to sanitize and hide grotesque suffering.
So, why does all this matter so much? Why is this tension the absolute key to the poem's power? Well, because Owen isn't just writing an anti-war poem. He's actually reclaiming what poetry itself is for.
You can think of it like a three-step revolution. First, he totally subverts tradition by using the forms of patriotic poetry to attack it from the inside. Second, he reclaims poetry as a tool for raw truth, not propaganda. And finally, and this is so important, that tension perfectly reflects what was going on in a soldier's head, caught between the world he was taught to believe in and the unprecedented horror he was actually living.
So, in the end, the poem itself becomes a kind of battlefield, doesn't it? It's a place where this traditional, beautiful language struggles and ultimately fails to contain the new mechanized violence of modern war.
And what you get from all this is this incredible transformation. By mastering this clash between what he says and how he says it, Owen turns a simple poem into a powerful instrument of ethical resistance. And that's why it still hits so hard, even a century later. Which leaves us with one last question to think about. Owen exposed how the beautiful language of patriotism could be a lie. So my question for you is, where in our own world, right now, do we see beautiful, orderly language being used to package, or maybe even hide, a really difficult or terrible truth?